This is day 1520. 1520 days since Richard was premeditatedly murdered on Fort Bliss. It was a code red. They ordered it. This is a failure of military leadership because of involvement, really treason, serving foreign and domestic enemies, serving themselves in the criminal trafficking. They could not withstand the temptation of all of the trafficking. And, there is a failure in El Paso too, because think of it, this big failure of the trifecta, right? The DA's office is usurped. You have an illegal as a chief medical examiner, and then you have an entire panel of judges that are illegal because they're appointed. You can't have appointed judges on a county-wide, very powerful, and I'm going to tell you how they're very powerful, on the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court. You can't have that with a usurped DA's office. And, think about it. Bill Hicks was also appointed, and he refused to sign his anti-bribery statement before before he took his oath of office. So he didn't do that. He failed to do it. I think failed is a better word. He failed to admit or to officially swear that he was not offered bribes before he took his oath of office. I think that's really important. And when he was alerted that they didn't have that, he tampered with official government files. I'm trying to get all the words correct because that is a huge crime, and of course he usurped the office, and because of that, you have practically a non-functioning criminal judicial system there in El Paso, Texas. And so when our son was ordered to be murdered, when our son was retaliated against for being a whistleblower, he was put in jail by these illegal individuals impersonating judges on the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court. He was magistrated through them and unlawfully put in jail. Patrick Crucius from the Walmart mass shooting case was magistrated through that court. It's a botched case, right? It's a botched case. And he was processed and arraigned through that court. And, the lead criminal, because this makes everyone, the entire panel is criminal now. Okay, they have been criminals since 2015, the time of Richard's murder, at the time of Richard's unlawful sent to jail time. Penny Hamilton was the presiding criminal over that court. I'm not saying the court is criminal. The El Paso criminal law magistrate court is not illegal. It is those that are sitting on the bench. They have to be elected, and they're not elected. So they're illegal. They're criminal. And it makes a lot of sense how wonderful the Texas Constitution is to the people, because when you have that kind of power, and they have huge power, and I wrote some notes because I was trying to wrap my head around the type of power that these individuals have and assert over the people of El Paso, and could assert over Richard, and of course anybody else coming through that court. It's very interesting that criminals like Danae Katzen, like Belen Rocha, and I'm sure 90% of the cases go through that magistrate court, why they got dismissed or whatever. It was like, why are they getting their cases dismissed? Did they know something? Did they know somebody? Who are these individuals that, are uh, really impersonating a judge and criminally, right? And that makes a lot of sense to us because so many criminals were, getting the easy way out. And yet with Richard, a whistleblower, um, just obviously being framed and retaliated against, targeted by this court, targeted by the criminal group from the original response team, um, absolutely targeted and framed, was sent to jail. And any judge worth their salt could see what was going on. And yet, they seem to be in on it. And with Penny Hamilton, his name coming up early on, like over a year ago, probably more so, um, her name came up and handling different things for Richard's case. And so we absolutely have inquired about that with Judge Robert Shook. Those two judges came up. And isn't that interesting? Because she was the lead impersonator at the time. Criminal, absolutely criminal. And she did worse things. She absolutely needs to be arrested because, and I'm going to put out a report. I think I'm going to put a complaint about her, um, because right now she's working in the DA's office with Bill Hicks, a usurper. So it really, well, let me tell you what kind of power they have. Um, so when when agents need anything in order to do an investigation, they need a judge, right? We have done our investigation without subpoenas, without subpoena power. Can you imagine what we would find and what we could get if we had subpoena power? I mean, amazing. So, but these, of course, CID Fort Bliss had, make sure that I'm on. I almost forget every time because it gets so late. And I really want everyone to hear about this power that they're wielding without being elected. Okay, so when you are an investigator, an agent, um, like Marlon Soto, he had subpoenas, he had warrants, but he didn't get them for himself. He had to have judges get them for him. And we were getting back that it was coming from Penny Hamilton and Robert Shook. So, Robert Lee Shook. And so just think about this. You can be just some person that goes into the courthouse, puts on a robe, picks up a gavel, sits there, and impersonates a judge and issues search warrants, wiretaps, allows wiretaps into phones, into computers, uh, allows the receiving of tracking devices, GPS information that are in cars. Many cars have these tracking devices with GPS. You know, the judges that sit on a magistrate court, They give you the power to go and get that information. Can you imagine? We would know so much about Richard's phone. We would know about Richard's car. We would know about his last whereabouts. If we had this power, they do. Um, uh, they can allow the investigators to break into your phone. They can go into your home and search your home. They can search your private life, like your banks, um, and I'm just oh yeah, they can also go to your places of work and search that and ask questions and everything. So that is incredible power, frightening power. And for that to be in the hands of just some people that are appointed by the likes of like Judge Sam Madrano, who we know is a dirty judge, um, that's frightening. And I'm not an alarmist. I'm just saying that kind of power can only be given to entrusted individuals. And in order to get the entrusted individual, uh, I guess, screened, they have to go through an election process. And that's what the Texas Constitution says. When you have county-wide jurisdiction and this kind of power, you must be elected. So since 2015, when they received county-wide jurisdiction, all judges that sit on the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court must be elected, and they haven't been. They've pulled the wool over the people's eyes. They did not inform them. They denied them their voting rights, their election. This is huge, huge crime because when you're in that system, you absolutely know. And yet they deceived the people. And so once you think about it a lot and do your own research, research the Texas Constitution, research the El Paso Criminal Law Magistrate Court, research the 5 criminals now that are imposters of the judges. Um, Once you research who they are, knowing that they could never, Penny Hamilton, when you look into her, she could never win an election. She has nothing really. She has nothing of note. And for anyone getting that kind of power, they need to be the cream of the crop. They need to be the best of the best, right? They need to have the trust of the people and they need to have a direct connection to the people, be directly connected to the people. Um, and that's what elections do. So make them absolutely answer to the people that they serve, that they will make judgments over, that they will make orders over, that they will arraign, that they can even put in jail. So, have their house searched, take away their children, have their phones searched, have their GPS car devices, um, hacked into and get the information, um, and much, much more. So this is very important for the El Paso community to understand because this is what has happened there. Now, if it's happened there, is it happening other places? Because we have a legal problem, a law enforcement problem, and we absolutely have failed leadership in the U.S. Army. We have failed generals in the U.S. Army that were appointed by the Senate Arms Committee. And so, one thing leads to the other. This is how this is so big. If they're corrupting the DA's office there, if they're corrupting the chief medical examiner's office, things that need to happen. We need a chief medical examiner. We need a district attorney, but we don't need a usurper. We don't need someone that's unqualified and illegal. We need to have our system back. It has been circumvented by illegal usurping and imposters. And this is why um, what happened to Richard happened because he was a whistleblower and they targeted him and they allowed the targeting. And even the court, because it being so problematic um, with this criminal panel, they targeted Richard, and the DA's office targeted Richard, and the medical examiner targeted Richard. We believe that the medical examiner absolutely targeted Richard because why? Yeah, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. And, it just tells you another breach in security. Breach in security, like the breach in security of Fort Bliss, who, that the whole security of Fort Bliss was in the hands of a Mormon, DES Thomas Kane. And DES Thomas Kane, who said that Richard was a good meal for the coyotes when asked, um, absolutely witnessed to uh, it was very, very bad what was going on in the emergency intake center to the children. And we know because of President Trump uh, exposing it and bringing it out to the public that there were hundreds of thousands. Today he said 325,000 unaccompanied children. Now, being a mother, being a Gigi, when I hear unaccompanied, uh, I shiver. I shiver because I know that children, even up to 17, traveling those long distances by themselves, you don't do that. Even Jesus says to his disciples, go out in two by two, right? Two by two. You don't go unaccompanied. And President Trump even exposed and alerted everybody that these children were kidnapped, that they were ripped out of their homes. They were kidnapped, and then they had to travel unaccompanied. Who accompanied them? Was it their kidnappers? Was it these coyotes? They call these individuals coyotes that are bring in do the human trafficking or do the human trafficking work, right? The traveling part of it, and get paid to do that. Who was with them and what happened to them? And when they got into the United States and they were entrusted to military leadership on Fort Bliss, what happened to them? Where are they? And President Trump says they're mostly dead. They're mostly dead. And of course, DES, Thomas Kane, and I have to say there is a common denominator, and the common denominator with Leilani Hart, with Dallas, with Thomas Kane, with the lawyers in this, with so many business people, Tavita Nusa, the common denominator is that they're Mormon. And like Danae Katzen, like Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, this is the common denominator. And look, when I was young, I was a big Donny Osmond. When I was a very young girl, I was it tells you my age, Donny Osmond fan, right? So this is not. I'm just telling you the facts, and the underlining common denominator. Of course, they're criminals. They have criminal records. They have money problems. So they might get hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands. Rosa Maria Valdez got tens of thousands of dollars um, from the Walmart Victims Fund out of the El Paso Community Foundation, who was in charge for most of the money and the distribution of it. And she got tens of thousands of it. And it's just the underlining commonality is that they have money problems. Bill Hicks has money problems. So they, all this thievery, all this criminality, all this trafficking, all this money laundering and everything. And it just goes on and on and on. It's never satisfied. It's never satisfied. It's like these sex cults. They're never satisfied. And you see this with the P. Diddy, Sean Diddy Combs. It's all over the news, uh, corroborating what was going on in the military with the sex cults, with the doggy sex cults, um, uh, the videotaping of the activities, of their sex cult activities. And look, you have J Lo. I think it's J Lo, right? She was married to this creature, and it's it's gonna be so sad, because the blackmail is, absolutely. Do not tell me that they are not going to leverage their videos and things like this. And Richard was turning in videos there from as a whistleblower, and we know that Leilani Hart was in possession of child corn, excuse me, and and that Dallas Hart was looking for that corn. He was looking really hard for that corn. Um, so we know that Richard's murder came after being targeted, being retaliated against severely and continuously, and that it was ordered then. His death was ordered. And there's a lot of reasons for that. You have uh, criminals on the magistrate court. You have criminals in the DA's office. Um, you have criminals, uh, criminal as the medical examiner, which is huge. Um, you have Richard being at record free, right? Being exonerated from the frame job they tried to do on him. You also have the election of Yvonne Rosales. Our timelines, we have it all around here. When you put everything together, it is very, very clear that in 2020, um, just days after Richard was exonerated and Yvonne Rosales, and what does that mean when he was exonerated? That means that all the retaliation that was based um, on this false frame job that they did on him, all of them, what were they going to do? Now apologize? I mean, they took 3 ranks away from him. They gave him 45 days of extra duty, 50% of his pay. They made him wear full body battle gear during the 45 days, giving him only 4 hours of sleep a day for 45 days. And also all the abuse, the language abuse. Um, what were they going to do? Were they going to give him back his rank? Were they going to give him back his pay? How do you give back the 45 days of abuse? You know, were they going to undo the GOMAR, the permanent GOMAR, backtrack the the chaptering that they were trying to do on him? Uh, no, this is where, and I put it out there. Breaking news: whistleblower, because we're getting more and more whistleblowers, and we got word that Richard absolutely was a code red. It was an ordered murder. It was a plant. And that is all coming through with um, whistleblowers. And that has led us to look into Chris Martin. Chris Martin has a much bigger role in all of this than we ever knew. And it's not good. He's a major criminal. And Nadal Baim has a much bigger role. And the leadership, the generals, looked us in the eyes and lied to us, boldface, boldface, lied to us. This is, it's not the lie that is the treasonous. Of course it is. But you're talking about Nadal Baim that has a record, that is the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado in Richard's command, the 32nd ADCOM, G3 and 32nd ADCOM, ADA there. You have the betrayal of these generals to their obligation to their soldiers, to America, to national security, because Nadal Baim's activities on and off of Fort Bliss and in El Paso, it's huge, y'all, and it's not good activity. And they just, because the criminal judicial system was messed up, controlled, usurped, impersonated, illegal, they just thought they could get these contracts. These contracts are paid by the American people. These military contracts are paid by the American people. And so I just want to let you know that even a whistleblower, well, after the declaration of death, breaking news, whistleblowers. And whistleblowers in our son's case have been retaliated against very severely. So for whistleblowers to, and everyone knows that, everyone paying attention, and the whistleblowers that are coming out now are paying attention. They've been paying attention. So it's very brave of them. And, you know, it's to look into Chris Martin, to look into James Hart, and his, of course, with Leilani Hart. She's a confirmed convicted criminal that has mental problems. She has major mental problems and on medication, and, you know, cannot she's a prime suspect, right? She's a prime suspect with her son, Richard's platoon leader, Dallas Hart. And, you know, that Mercedes is a very, you know, with the whistleblowers, with, you know, New Mexico. I can't give too much. I'm trying to give enough that you know that we have it. Okay, I'm trying to give you enough information to, in your investigative minds, in your investigative, I guess the puzzle that you've tried to put together, because we have, of this case of Richard Halliday, and how did that all happen? We're trying to give you enough information because, you know, this criminal group, they follow this all the time. They're following all the time. I just saw Nick Nofsinger, Brown Bell, you know, these are major criminals up to no good. And so soon, I think soon, I'm hoping, I'm praying soon, you'll know everything. But I'm trying to give you enough information where you know that we have it. So Nadal Baim cannot be dismissed. He has so many connections in this via the contracts, the LLCs, the cross-border um, activities, uh, being the, Bradford Bugado, the lieutenant colonel in the G3, he's and his wife, and of course sister-in-law, family members, Nadal Bayim's family members. I mean, it's big. It's very big, and their connections with powerful people in El Paso. It's kind of like this whole thing with P. Diddy. He has connections with powerful people that did wrong, that acted criminally, um, or, just participated in the sex cult and were videotaped. And if it involved illicit drugs, if it involved children, um, if it involved bestiality, um, I don't even know if I'm allowed to say that on here. Um, you know, then they're in big trouble because that's criminal. Just like the problems in the Hart family that Leilani Hart let us all know about. Because, we have the FBI notarized complaint. I can't tell you how big a deal that is. Try to go get an FBI accepted notarized complaint from the FBI. All right? What does that tell you? That tells you that she has criminal access to the FBI that gave her report with her report number on it, that it was accepted, and she got the number. She got her number, FBI number. And it's such a big deal that she bragged about it and she gave it out to prove it, to prove her power. So, that's how we got it, because she had given it out. That's a huge, huge deal. And that she notarized her statement when she was being more coached. She was being more coached by, Tavita Nusa. And so the statement was, had some organization to it. It wasn't in crisis mode like this recent confession that we just received. That was a crisis in lies. I mean, but there was a lot of good information in there, because the truth always is in there somewhere, right? But this FBI notarized affidavit is really, really important. That's why I mention it all the time, because they knew that Dallas Hart needed to be investigated. And whistleblowers, see, we're getting information that Dallas Hart had troubles in New Mexico, had troubles in El Paso, had troubles on Fort Bliss. Now, for the regular person, you might go, oh, okay, he had some troubles, but maybe he got dismissed or whatever. But we are a military family. We are a military family. He had troubles. He went green to gold. How did that happen? That's supposed to be the cream of the crop. So and then they put someone that's troubled, right? Because he was very troubled. And they put him in charge of our volunteer sons and daughters. And then you have an affidavit coming out that's notarized because of the bragging mother saying, my family is engaged in incest. My family is engaged in harming children in my master bedroom, my household. My my family has problems with illegal arms purchasing. My family is violent. They threaten me with weapons. My family, I'm in possession of child porn. Y'all, how does this happen that he is an officer in the United States Army? And when we exposed all this, um, he was out. He was out. But it was exposed to people that are supposed to do oversight. It was exposed to the leadership that have an obligation to care for our volunteer sons and daughters. Richard was just 18 when he went in. 18. Homeschooled. I'm not saying he didn't have it. He had more experiences than most people. And even his one unit member, when I talked to him at one of the rallies, said, we thought my buddy and I here, we thought he was a liar because he said that he was born in Poland, that he was living in Germany and Heidelberg and in Ireland, that he was homeschooled, that he didn't go to school, that he was going to a German language school, the Volkshochschule, or the traveled to Korea and went to the Korean culture and language course there, that he was going into Dublin learning how to do business, that he was part of the Royal School of Music learning piano, that he was a black belt in karate, that he was traveling to Israel, that he was traveling to Malta. Oh no, he didn't go to Malta. Sorry, that was our other son. Our other son went to Malta. Richard was in Korea at the time, but that he was traveling Europe. And they were like, "No, we don't believe you." And then we found out that that was true, and it's true. He joined the army from Korea. He had a different life. And he was just 18. He clept out of 6 hours of German language college credit at the age of 15. He clept out of 6 hours of college math at the age of 15. He did it like boom, boom, one after the other. We were like, woohoo! Let me give you some money. Celebrate, right? Same thing when he was distinguished honor graduate for basic training. We matched it. He got $500. We matched it with another $500. Did that make him a target? Do they know when they get their monies? Did they know he had Bitcoin? Because he thought that was interesting. He invested in Bitcoin. Where's his Bitcoin? The court absolutely has power to get into all of that. We don't have power. And until his declaration of death, we're trying to figure all this all out because there hasn't been the help we should have had. Why? Because it was a code red murder. It was a code red murder. The obstruction to justice, the obstruction to finding out what happened to our son, the obstruction to help in any way has been off the charts. Off the charts. But when the declaration of death, things changed. But the level of lie, but it's still not enough. Still not enough. This is why we need accountability. because we're not getting answers for our questions and we're not getting help for where it's needed. You know, uh, they're supposed to do this. They're obligated. We've had to do all the legwork. $1,520 of investigative work every day. Hundreds and hundreds of letters. And what do we get? Our generals lying to us, misleading us, telling us Nadal Baim is just nobody, just nobody. He's just a nobody. He's just might be following you on Facebook, but he's no, he is the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado. He's the one doing the bids with the El Paso Police Department for ammunition. He's the one that has connections that go across that border. He's the one that has a record. He's the one that has these business ties. He's the one that has these family ties. He's the one that has the ties to the car dealership. Let's talk about the Mercedes. He's the one. he Let me tell you, he's a very, very big player in all of this. Criminal. He's a really big criminal in all of this. With James Hart and with Leilani Hart and with Dallas Hart and with Chris Martin. And it goes on from there. The case is broken, but so is the criminal judicial system there in El Paso. So is the Department of Justice. Look, Merrick Garland today, it looks like he can be arrested. This is what's being reported. And I can tell you from firsthand experience that there has been absolutely a weaponization of the Department of Justice and a lack of oversight. We wrote from El Paso asking for their help from the very beginning. I think this is why they might be very concerned right now, because we asked from the very beginning when they knew they had an illegal medical examiner, where they knew that they had an entire panel of judges that were impersonators and not legal, up to no good. And I will tell you this, that Bill Hicks is totally intertwined with this group too. Why would he be intertwined? Well, I don't know. Did he have a law practice? Is that necessary when you're being investigated, when you have LLCs that are not on the up and up? And so, the whole announcement today of the hundreds of thousands of unaccounted for children that are mostly dead, that's largely due to, we believe, because of whistleblowers informing us that this is due to our hundreds of complaints and notifications and reports that we have filed. Hundreds. Not just one, not just two, not three, not 10, hundreds of them. That's what this has taken. And not only that, but an amicus brief to the SB4, We filed an amicus brief to the SB4 case, huge federal case. We also notified all of the law schools about the usurpation of Bill Hicks, the failure of Bill Hicks to uh, swear that he had not taken bribes before he was sworn in, and then tampering with government records to cover that up. We filed with every law school that we could get an email for, which was a lot of them. I think it was it was a lot of them, y'all. It was a major work. And when we found the illegal activities in the FitFam El Paso LLC, and we discovered that it was forfeitured, and the only reason why we can think of that it would be forfeitured of something that profitable, that they would be so sloppy to do that, was because they didn't want to turn in the reports, the records that are necessary for a legal LLC for paying taxes. And so because it was forfeitured, we legally acquired FitFam El Paso LLC with its brand names. They weren't happy. We also discovered this panel of judges were operating illegally, ruling illegally over the people, and that they were violating the Texas Constitution and violating the civil rights, the election rights of all the people that they're supposed to be presiding over, or yeah. And then that really explains why there's so much crime and why the criminal trafficking was allowed to get to the extent that it was, and all of this impersonation and usurpation and illegal activity going on. So all of what we have as Team Find Richard Halliday have done has, absolutely allowed the exposure of the hundreds of thousands of children unaccounted for, mostly dead, to come out right now. And the media doesn't want to cover it. The media doesn't want to cover Richard Halliday's story, and it's huge. Our story, our son's story, is huge. And it's international. And I haven't even touched on what happened all in Mexico. So absolutely, we have been moving that mountain. We've been moving the mountain and shaking the mountain. And, we want accountability for what they did to our son. But even for the people that live in El Paso, for the United States, because this is treason by the generals. Absolute treason. And they all need to face the death penalty. And I never, and I've said this for the last couple nights and everything, I never understood the death penalty. I was a Ron Paul fan. If you look at Ron Paul's platform, he's not for the death penalty. I've changed my mind. And I realize that you don't always understand God. You just have to obey God. And when he says that these criminals, these perpetual criminals, need to face the death penalty, I understand that now. Because the consequences are hell, are absolutely hell on the innocent. are absolutely hell on those trying to make a halfway decent life. It's hell. And that lives are at stake, national security is at stake, and these generals absolutely, over and over and over again, committed treason. So thank you so much. A happy Saturday, right? It's a happy Saturday. Uh, Great day. It's a happy Sunday. Ooh, it's a happy Sunday now. And yeah, may God bless you. And we will be back tomorrow, God willing. So much happening. He's moving the mountains. I really, I need to always remember that God's hand has been on this, all over this, in so many ways. And all glory and honor is to Him. Um, I cannot tell you how we discovered Nadal Baim, how we were allowed to continue live streaming on Facebook when we were banned, um, how we discovered, the whistleblower, the courage that the whistleblowers have had is all because of God's hand on all of this. And we're moving mountains. God's moving mountains. So thank you so much. And I don't think they're going to have a choice. Um, the law may, it's going to be a little embarrassing, I think, for some. A lot embarrassing. Just like this whole P. Diddy thing. It's going to be very embarrassing. And it's because P. Diddy was allowed to operate. And it was because in El Paso, the criminal trafficking network was allowed to operate. So, we need to, yeah, we need a reset, right? So thank you so much. God bless you. And I will be back tomorrow.